something you've been putting off. Maybe you say, someday I'll do that, or when I have more time. Whether the item is a big bucket list item or something smaller like going on a hike, now is the time to start your Say Yes list. And we have the perfect process to help you turn these items into reality. Join thousands of others with our free Say Yes list template at thesayyesexperience.com/list. It'll help you stop living in that someday and start making those list items come true today. So download it now at thesayyesexperience.com/list. Welcome to the Say Yes Experience podcast, where we inspire you to get out of your comfort zone and into possibility. Our mission at the Say Yes Experience is to empower 10 million people to say yes. If you're new here, welcome. We're thrilled you're here. I'm Jessica Rector. I co-founded the Say Yes Experience with my then 9-year-old son Blaze, based off his idea to let's just say yes to things. I'm one of the top experts on burnout, and companies and conferences hire me to present on mental health, wellness, and burnout prevention. As the #1 best-selling author of 11 books, keynote speaker, and a burnout specialist, I've seen so much with our clients. The Say Yes Experience was started to help you really start living, to do the things that light you up, have more fun, and turn your dreams, or what we call Say Yes list items, into reality. So thank you for investing in yourself and being here. Now let's make it happen. If you've ever wanted to start a garden or even have chickens, this is the episode for you. As someone who's tried to grow a few things like tomatoes, strawberries, and cucumbers, to no avail, I might add, I know the challenges of trying to do it alone. As the host of one of the top homestead podcasts, Brian Wells is here to help. His podcast, Homestead Journey Podcast, helps hundreds of thousands of people on their homestead journey. I'm thrilled, as I know many of you are too, to learn how he can help me successfully begin growing. So let's get started. Please help me welcome my guest today, Brian Wells. Thank you for joining me, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me.
So happy you're here, because we're going to talk today about something that I think most people don't know much about, and that's sustainability. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that and why you're so passionate about it.
Sure. So I kind of got born into this a little bit. I'm actually a 4th generation homesteader, and really became passionate about my own personal journey back in about 2008, when my wife and I relocated to upstate New York. And we started our own journey here on our homestead, really trying to raise and grow as much food as we could of our own. And so here we are, 15 years later. I'm not really all that great at math, but here we are about 15 years later, and we're doing a lot of things here on our homestead as we really try to pursue a life of self-sufficiency, self-reliance, and sustainability.
So tell us a little bit more about what that means and what that looks like specifically in your life.
Sure. So for me, I always like to look at it this way. Self-sufficiency speaks to stuff, the things that I can raise, grow, produce, and process on my homestead. Self-reliance speaks to skills. Do I have the skills necessary to raise, grow, produce, and process the stuff that I need? And then sustainability, well, a lot of people think about that from the standpoint of environmental impact. And certainly, I think homesteaders are the original environmentalists, because we really try to be good stewards of the land and so forth that we're responsible for. But I look at it a little bit more from the standpoint of systems. And so how I kind of like to look at it is this way. Let's say I want to be self-sufficient with regards to eggs, and my family and I are. We've not bought eggs in the store for our family since 2008. And the only reason why we did it in 2008 is because we went out to my brother's wedding in Texas, and I didn't feel like it was smart to fly with eggs on the plane. So we left the eggs in upstate New York. And, but anyhow, so to me, that would be the stuff. So that would be self-sufficiency. Self-reliance would say, do I know how to take care of chickens? Do I know how to raise chicks from, chick stage all the way up to adulthood, keep them alive? And then they're going to produce all of the eggs that I need. And sustainability would say, no longer do I want to order those through the mail. I don't want to buy them at the feed store, but rather I'm going to have a rooster, and he's going to do the roostery things. I'm going to have some hens, and they're going to do the henny things, and they're going to hatch out the chicks that I need that are then going to continue to provide me with all of the eggs that I need. So that's kind of how I look at sustainability, self-reliance, and self-sufficiency kind of all working together to help provide us with the nutritious, delicious eggs that we have here on our homestead.
Now, can you do one of them and not all of them, or do you really need to do all of them together? Kind of that, especially if you're not in it, it can sound a little overwhelming. Oh my gosh, I've got to do all that. I've got to do it all at once.
Yeah, no, that's the reason why I started a podcast back in 2019, and I call it the Homestead Journey Podcast, because to me, we're on a journey towards those ideals, towards self-sufficiency, self-reliance, and sustainability. But we realize we're never, ever going to fully realize any of that. There's always going to be new skills that we can acquire, new things that we might want to raise, grow, produce, and or process on our homesteads. And certainly we're always trying to refine the systems that we have. So for example, while I talk about sustainability from the standpoint of not wanting to buy chicks at the store or order them through the mail, I just got a batch of chicks today because I just like having a lot of variety, and I don't want to have a bunch of different roosters and a bunch of different hens, although I love barnyard crosses.
Yes.
To me, while I certainly have in the past gone breed specific, and we only had one, we had actually Buff Orpingtons, my all-time favorite breed of chicken, but that's kind of a bit of a rabbit hole we won't go down unless you want to. But, so in that regard, my sustainability model, while it's there, I certainly don't necessarily practice that because I don't have to. As long as I can order chicks, I'm going to order chicks. But if the proverbial crap were to hit the fan, I always keep a rooster around to make sure I have that perpetual supply of eggs.
Now, if somebody is not born into it, what's a great way for them to get started?
That's a great question, because so many people get confused with the idea of homesteading being a location or all of these things that you have to do. And
Right.
To me, homesteading, again, it's that journey. And so it's a matter of really starting where you're at and starting with simple things. So if you've never raised any of your own food before, if you've never grown a garden, maybe you simply start by getting some pots on your windowsill and you plant a few herbs and you learn kind of how to take care of plants that way. Maybe then you would upgrade. I upgrade because I'm a computer guy, so I use upgrade terms. But that's my day job is being a computer guy. But so maybe you take the next step on your journey towards self-sufficiency, self-reliance, and sustainability, and maybe you get a few chickens. And we jokingly refer to chickens as the gateway drug to farming. Right. And then after that, maybe you go into pigs. So it's kind of a progression. But one of the things I tell people is never try to do all of the things at once, because that's a recipe for disaster.
So why are chickens the gateway to farming?
Well, it's one of those things that once you get into them, we jokingly refer to chicken math. So it's like you get a few chicks, and then it's like, oh, you go to the Tractor Supply or your local feed store, and you're walking by the feed bin, and you hear that cheep, cheep, cheep of those little chicks, and then you just can't help but to get a few more little chicks. And then, oh, by the way, there's a few ducks there, so hey, why not take a crack at having some ducks? And then after you got that, oh, well, then maybe some geese. And then after that, well, maybe some turkeys. And then after that, well, I've got to have a few pigs. And so then it just kind of just balloons for there until the next thing you know, well, you've got an entire barnyard of critters, and your feed bill is costing you a lot more than what it would take to go down and buy a bunch of stuff at the store, but you're having fun doing it.
That's right. So why would someone want to do the homestead journey? Why would they want to start pursuing that? Especially, let's say, if you're living in a city, what's a way that, you can do that to start? And why would you want to? Especially if I'm living in the city, so it's never going to be super big.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And I think really we don't need to go much farther back than what took place a couple of years ago when people were going into the grocery stores and the shelves were bare. And I don't know about you, but that was one of the first times in my life I'd ever seen anything like that. And
right.
I think a lot of people thought, oh my goodness, I am going to have to start taking some control over this, because if I depend on other people, well, the supply chains are more fragile, I think, than any of us ever imagined.
Especially now. I mean, I speak in all different kinds of industries, and anyone that has products of any kind, that's one of primary issues, Brian, that comes up is supply chain issues, and then that has a trickle down effect, right? Because staff shortages are abundant so much in every industry now. So if you're producing a product and you're having staff shortages, so you're not getting the product out as fast, and then transportation issues, so it's not getting to where you need to be, and then so grocery stores or wherever you're getting it from, wholesalers, everybody's running out of the product. So you get, as a consumer, it makes it harder for you to get.
Yeah, and that's well, I think a lot of people all of a sudden realized, and I hate to use the big C word here, but during the whole COVID time there, when people were going to the grocery stores and seeing that. Now, to be frank with you, I wasn't really worried about starving to death. And the reason why is because we had a lot of food, in the larder, as some people would say, in the pantry. We'd canned a lot of stuff. Our freezers were full. And so my diet might have been a little bit monotonous, but we had that perpetual supply of eggs because we had chickens in the backyard, and I had pigs, in my wooded area. So certainly, do I want to live every day eating pork? I don't know as I do, but on the other hand, if it's going to keep body and soul together, you do what you got to do. And Absolutely. So I think, for a lot of people, when they went into the grocery stores and they realized, oh my goodness, the food's not here, it really woke them up to maybe they need to take a little bit more control over it. But I think even beyond that, I challenge you to flip over a box of crackers the next time you're at the grocery store, or, even a jar of peanut butter, and see if you can pronounce the ingredients on the back of those things. And I think a lot of people are also starting to realize that there's a lot of junk in our food. And so, taking control of that's one of the things I tell people all the time. For me, it's as much about what's not in my food as knowing what I am, putting into the jars or into the freezer. And so, the other part to your question too, with regards to people who might live in an urban area, certainly where you live is going to impact the size and the scale on which you can raise and grow food. But there's a listener of my podcast, her name is Claire, and she lives in a townhouse. She has an 8x10 patio. And yet she realized that she wanted to raise and grow more of her own food. And so she got creative. She got totes. She started vertical gardening, and she started generating a lot of food right on her back patio. And then she realized that there were some community gardens nearby. And so she went and she signed up for a couple of, and I don't know if it's a rent. I don't know exactly what the situation is as far as how you acquire them in that particular community garden, but she was able to get a couple of spots and started growing food there. And this year she added another spot, and oh, by the way, she's raising quail as well on her back patio. So she's generating meat, she's generating eggs, she's doing a whole bunch of gardening. She also goes out and she forages for food. There's another person I know she lives in Staten Island. And she goes into the parks in the New York City area and she forages for food. So
what does that mean?
So she goes looking for it. There's free food everywhere, whether it's mushrooms or whether it's, there's things that we look at like weeds that are actually edible. Dandelions is a great example of that.
Right.
You can take dandelions, you can eat the leaves in a salad. You can take the flowers and turn them into jelly and to wine. You can even do things with the roots from the dandelion plant. And
really?
Yeah, absolutely. This past weekend we had
That's fascinating.
It really is. And it's everywhere. We had a homesteading festival, the first annual Southern Adirondack Homesteading Festival this past weekend. And we had a guy, his name's Rich Giordano, and he came and he did foraging walks. And it took them a half hour just to get out of the parking lot because he was finding all of these edible plants that we just overlook all the time.
Oh, gosh, how do you know if it's edible or if it's going to be poisonous or something that we really can't eat?
Well, certainly you don't want to go with a trial and error method because, well, you might get into something that you shouldn't be eating. But it's one of those things that there's books that you can read, but there's also apps on this little thing right here there's one called Plant Snap, and you can just take a picture of a plant and it'll tell you what it is. It'll tell you whether or not it's edible. So there's a lot of things like
that's cool.
Yeah, there's technology right in your back pocket that you can use that is going to help you in that regard. Certainly, I'm not suggesting that we all go start eating weeds. And even Rich said there's certain things that just because you can eat it, just because it is edible, does not mean that it's delicious. Those are two totally different things.
Well, even when you were saying that and you talked about the app, I was like, oh, my son would love that because like when we go for a walk and stuff, he always like picks things up and looks at things. And so that's a cool tool just to snap and even take back just to say yes to trying something crazy new that we never would have thought to do before. So when you were talking about that lady in the city and you said she's growing stuff on her 8x10 patio, what kind of stuff is she growing?
She's growing all kinds of vegetables. So she's got cucumbers and beans and broccoli and cauliflower. I mean, she's growing, basically a lot of the stuff that they eat. Lettuces, a lot of salad stuff that they, tomatoes, peppers.
Wow.
And
is that stuff, Brian, that she's growing in a pot?
Yeah. So she has totes that like just Rubbermaid totes that she's filled with garden soil and she's growing in that. Pots. I mean, she's got on. I tell you what, it blows me away. I mean, I'll give her a shout out at start_small_homestead. Her name's Claire. But
oh my gosh, that's so fascinating. Now, do you want to start saying yes, but you just don't know where to start? And oftentimes when we don't know where to start, we just don't start. So we created an ebook just for you. We put together 101 ways to say yes. In this ebook, ideas big and small, things that only take a small amount of time, like 1 to 2 minutes. Whether you're saying yes to yourself, in your family, relationships, or pushing yourself lovingly outside of your comfort zone with adventures, it's all made to really help you become more of your rock star self. So you can get this ebook at thesayyesexperience.com/book, BOOK. So if you want to start saying yes, or maybe you need some ideas on how to say yes because you get so caught up in being busy and doing tasks and projects or doing laundry and cooking that the time flies by and you want to spend time with your family, but you just don't know how to say yes. Those ideas just don't come to you. We put it together to make it super, super easy for you. So go to thesayyesexperience.com/book to get your copy today and start saying yes now. Are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or burned out? We get it. You're not alone. In fact, according to our research, 79% of the workforce is in burnout and almost half are in extreme burnout. In fact, it's the number one reason why people are leaving organizations. They're burned out. They're looking for something more. They're looking for something better. But it doesn't have to be that way. We have your solution. It's called Blaze Your Brain to Extinguish Burnout. 52 Keys to Prevent, Breakthrough, and Eliminate Burnout. You can find your copy at jessicarector.com/store. Now, this is a great tool that you can use with yourself, with your colleagues, within your organization. Everyone can get one, and you can go through one a week with them. And at the end, you can say, what was something that worked this week? What was the success you had? So you can champion and encourage each other. You can also ask what were the challenges and issues that came up so you can mastermind and brainstorm around those to keep those from coming up in the future. So make sure you get your copy at justcorrector.com/store. All books are autographed with a personal message just for you. Typically, when you're starting this and you don't know much about it, where can people go and learn about this? Because my son and I, we've tried to grow tomatoes, we've tried to grow cucumbers, we've tried to grow strawberries. Nothing ever grows for us, nothing. And we try to grow it outside in the yard, in a garden. Last time we tried to grow tomatoes and we started in those little, I don't even know what they're called, little small things indoors. And then once the seed starts growing a little bit, you put it in a bigger pot. And as soon as we transferred it over to the bigger pot, it all died. So, where can somebody go to get started if they're not inclined, like they don't have the skills right now to do it? Where can they go to get those resources and the skills? Because it sounds fascinating and we may want to do it, but then, I don't want to keep putting the time and the energy and the effort and the money into it and then it die.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. A great resource is this podcast called the Homestead Journey Podcast. So shameless plug there. No, but there are a lot of great resources on the web. If you're on Facebook and you're into that kind of a thing, there's a lot of great gardening groups that are available. There's some really great YouTube channels to follow. Some of my favorite with regards to gardening, MI Gardener, which is actually a seed company out of Michigan, but the guy who owns that, his name is Luke. He has a lot of great information there to help people who are brand new to gardening. Another great one is Gary Pilarczyk with the Rusted. Oh boy, it's failing me now. I'll have to get that one and maybe we can put
it in the show notes. We can put all that stuff in the show notes.
Yeah, there are some really, really great YouTube channels out there. Another one is Haas Tools, which is a seed company out of Georgia that has a lot of great stuff.
Brian, where's the place that we can, if we're just starting it brand new, what's the easiest thing to start with? Because what you're doing with chicks and all that sounds really great, but if we've never done it before, we're like, yes, I want to get into it. What is a good entry point for us?
One of the things I recommend people, you certainly can start things from seed the way that you did with regards to tomatoes.
Well, it died, so it's not the best place to start it. But
and that's really you took the hard way with tomatoes. The easy way with tomatoes is to go down to Lowe's, Home Depot, your local garden center. They have transplants that are already started. And so I recommend people start with those because
is that like a little plant or something?
Exactly.
Okay.
You start with those because there's certain things that you're going to want to start from a transplant. So that would be things like tomatoes and peppers and your brassicas, so like cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, things like that. And then there's other things that you're going to want to start from seed. So that would be things like beans and beets and carrots. But really the easiest thing to do is to get those pre-started plants and put those in a pot. And there's going to be some varieties that are more pot friendly than others, but you get those in a pot, you stake them up, you put them on your patio, and you're going to really find that as long as you keep them watered, it's virtually foolproof. You just got to make them watered. Absolutely.
So, but you need to put them outside on your patio.
Yeah, that's going to be the best place to get them started. You want to make sure that they've got a good amount of sunlight.
Okay.
You want to make sure that they're not super shaded. So, getting them out in the sun is going to be key, and making sure that you keep them watered, but not sopping wet. So you want to make sure that you've got them in a container where the water can drain out. If they get waterlogged, then the roots are going to rot. And so that's going to,
So it needs to be a pot with holes in the bottom?
Yeah, that's going to be the best.
Okay.
For sure. And, depending on the plant and the variety, you're not going to want to put, a tomato plant in a little itty bitty pot. You might want to do a tomato plant in something that's about a 5-gallon bucket size. So that you can develop a good root system. And then you're going to want to provide it with some support. So some kind of a stake that you can tie it to.
That's what I was going to ask.
And then you're going to have, a great supply of tomatoes. You can do the same thing with a 5-gallon bucket and some soil, put a little lettuce in it. And, now you've got a salad, some lettuce and some tomatoes. And once you get hooked, let me tell you something, there's going to be no better tomato.
I know. I love fresh grown tomatoes. So like you're sitting there saying that, and I'm getting excited because I was going to ask you next, do you have to hook it to something to make sure it doesn't fall over? Now, is there a prime time of the year? I'm in Texas. So is there a prime time of the year to grow those tomatoes? Are they going to grow year round? Is this something you only do at a certain time of the year?
Yeah. So, for you, you're going to want to probably grow tomatoes in what we would call winter up here. Maybe not in winter, but certainly you probably are not going to want to grow tomatoes in the heat of summer. Okay. You might want to start them a little early. And now in your particular situation, you may want to have them in a little bit more of a shady spot, and then you could do it in the summer. A lot of it just kind of depends on how hot it gets. So one of the things I really recommend is, if you can, because you bring up a great point, what I grow and when I grow it is going to be vastly different than what you grow and when you grow it. And so connecting up with local gardeners is really going to be key. And there are local Facebook groups that'll help you out with stuff like that. Or when all else fails, go down to your library. At your local library.
What's that, Brian?
What's that? Yeah.
What's that? Just kidding. I know what a library is. I'm just saying, you don't go to a library these days. We go to a library.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, figure out where that is and go to that place where those old dusty books are, because there's probably going to be on the wall somewhere a bulletin board with, notices. And there's probably a local garden group that meets there, and it's going to be a bunch of gray-haired old ladies and a bunch of gray-haired old men. But those are going to be the people that you want to find and you want to learn from them. So
love it. I love it. So Brian, another thing I'm curious about, berries. What are the easiest berries to try and grow? So blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, strawberries. I love berries. I haven't tried to grow them. But somebody had once told me that that's something that you can also grow in a pot. I'm looking for ideas that I'm not having to put in a ground, because these ideas, not just for me, obviously, but these ideas will be good for anybody, because, anyone can stick a pot, somewhere. And specifically, I love berries. So what are some good berries to start with? Are they good to start with at all, though? Maybe berries are not good to start.
No, I mean, berries, certainly if you've never gardened before, you've never grown anything before, berries is probably not where I would start. But certainly strawberries are something that, generally speaking, can be very pop friendly. I'm not sure with raspberries, blueberries, and things of that nature, whether or not those, my guess is there's probably some varieties that people have developed that would be good with pots. But part of it is just a matter of finding a variety that meets the conditions that you're looking for. So that's where Google is kind of a great friend. And you can simply Google, berries, pot, Texas, and see what it comes back with. Now, keep in mind, my grandfather used to say, no paper ever refused ink. And so keep in mind that not everything you read on the internet is true. I mean, I know that's hard to believe, but not everything you read on the internet is true. So just because it says, this particular variety, do a little bit more research and don't just go buy the first one that you find. But certainly my guess is there are some varieties that would do well in pots in Texas. But
I also want to, Brian, make sure. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, since I don't live in Texas, I can't speak specifically to what those varieties are.
Well, I mean, my main thing is I want to start with something that doesn't need me to start with the seed. So if a berry is going to require me to start with the seed, because this time I want to make sure that I have success. So I'm looking for something easy that, is already like a plant that I can go buy at a store, stick it in and let's see what happens. But I was kind of thinking tomatoes and something else. Lettuce doesn't excite me as much as like berries or something like that does. Is why I was thinking of something else.
Do you like?
Yeah, I love basil, so I was thinking basil, and I've heard that basil grows very well.
Yes, basil. Get basil, make pesto, and keep in mind there are a whole bunch of different varieties of basil. So play around. Oh yeah, there's Thai basil, there's Italian basil, there's purple basil. I mean, there's all kinds of different varieties of basil. So see what you can find and play around with it. And besides basil, I mean, thyme is another good one. Oregano, cilantro. I'm trying to think of some other chives. Those are all things.
Chives.
Yeah, they would do great in a pot.
Brian, do all of those come in a plant?
Yeah.
From you to start with a plant in a plant style?
Yeah, most of those I think you'd be able to find at your local home and garden center or even at Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart. That would sell those as transplants. So just go there, look and see what they have available.
Love it.
The other thing too is jump on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and look for already started plants that people are selling. There are a lot of people that they'll start extra plants and they'll sell them for a couple of bucks. And it's just a great way for you to get started with something.
I wouldn't have even thought that they sell those on there.
Oh yeah.
Super cool. Super cool. So what do you want people to know, or what should people like have in their toolbox before they start down this homestead journey?
To me, it's just a willing attitude to get out there and try stuff. It's a matter of stop thinking about what you don't have and focus on doing the best you can with what you have to work with. And so many times people will say, well, I have to have 5, 10, 15, 20 acres of land to do this. Hogwash, you don't. Some people will say, no, I've got to have all the best tools. No, you don't. They'll say you got to have all the fancy things. No, you don't. You can start out with a little bit of dirt in a 5-gallon bucket, and you'll be well on your way to raising and growing your own food, starting your journey towards self-sufficiency, self-reliance, and sustainability. And I promise you, I firmly believe that anybody can do this. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do this. I promise you, I am not the brightest light bulb on the block. I am not. So you get out there, you try it. And if it doesn't work, you try to figure out why it didn't work and you try it again.
Yes.
Try it the same way. If it didn't work that way, try something different. See if you can find somebody local to help mentor you. But I promise you, you can do it. I really believe that.
And nothing tastes better than having that food from a garden or fresh grown food. Nothing is the best tasting food ever.
Absolutely. When you're standing in the middle of your garden and you're eating that sun-warmed tomato and those juices are dripping down your chin. Now, maybe I'm a messy eater, but those juices are just dripping off your chin. There is no better food. There's no better tomato in all the world than that tomato that you're eating right there.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian, and sharing all your wisdom. I'm excited to get started on my homestead journey just with some tomatoes.
Absolutely. You can do it. You can do it. I promise you, you can do it.
Thank you so much for joining. What are you going to start growing today? All it starts with a little plant in a pot and some dirt, some water, and some sunlight to start on your homestead journey. And as Brian said, anyone can do it. And nothing tastes better. So go out there and say yes to the homestead journey. And even if you don't have the skills and the tools, there's lots of resources we'll put in the show notes for you to go out and find those. But nothing tastes better than something from your own garden or something that you've grown. So you got this. Go out and have fun in the process. We'll see you on the next one. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye. Are you ready to move to your next level of rockstar greatness? CFO, Chief Fun Officer, #1 best-selling author, and keynote speaker Blaze Rector is ready to help you do that. At just 10 years old, he's already written 2 #1 best-selling books. Through the power of storytelling, he uses lessons learned and shares strategies, tips, tactics, and tools to inspire, empower, and motivate you to live a more amazing life. So if you're ready to do that in your own life, grab a copy of his #1 best-selling books at jessicarector.com/store. And when you order your copies, he will personally autograph them and write you a message on those books before shipping them out to you to really inspire and empower you in your life. These books are great for adults and kids alike. So if you're ready to move to your next level of rockstar greatness, make sure you grab your copy at justcorrector.com/store. Enjoy those amazing, empowering, transformational books. Did you know that the two biggest issues impacting the workforce are mental health and burnout? Well, we have your solution. The more that you feel burned out, the more it impacts your mental health. The more your mental health is impacted, the more it leads to burnout. So it's a vicious cycle that goes around and around, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can help them both if you're intentional and strategic with it. We have lots of resources for you at justcorrector.com/store. One that I want to highlight that really enhances your mental health is Tame Your Brain Game, 52 Tips to Turn Negative Thoughts into Positive Action. Now, research shows that 80% of your thoughts are negative. No matter how positive you feel, it's the pattern and the habit that you've developed over the course of years, over the course of decades. And that can often impact your life, how you show up, how you lead, how you communicate, how you engage, whether at work or at home. And then it also impacts a work environment. All you need is one NN or TT, negative Nancy or toxic Tim, to really impact that work environment. So if you are ready to enhance your mental health, get your copy of Tame Your Brain Game, 52 Tips to Turn Negative Thoughts into Positive Action today at justcorrector.com/store. All books are autographed with a personal message just for you. Thank you so much for being here. Check us out at thesayyesexperience.com. Our mission at the Say Yes Experience is to empower 10 million people to say yes. With your help in sharing our podcast, we can do that. Follow us on all social media at the Say Yes Experience and join our free community at facebook.com/groups/the Say Yes Experience. Thank you again to our guest. You can find all the contact information for our guest in the show notes. Thank you to our CFO, Chief Fun Officer, Blaze Rector, our business advisor, Lisa Verhurick, and to our team at Just Corrector Enterprises. We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Have an amazing day and keep being a rock star.